Hello, everyone. Thank you so graciously for joining me this afternoon. And yes, I am in a different spot and trying a different spot out tonight. I am actually in Alabama, so I'm at my home in Alabama. When I'm in Maryland, I actually live with my sister, and so I am back home for a few weeks. And this is part of my abode, my humble abode here in Alabama. So I'm actually trying out a different location in the house, and I can already tell that I can hear a bit of an echo. And of course, my ceilings are a little taller here, so that is it as well. So we'll try out a couple of different spots, and we'll just see what works, right? So for those of you who have joined me tonight, I know that you are ready to hear all about that sticky topic. This is a juicy one. How do you handle conflict when the conflict is with your boss? Right. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Twanna Carter, and I'm a career transition coach. I help high achieving professional women overcome that doubt and anxiety that can come from transitioning to a new career. And I do that by empowering them to recognize and communicate their unique value, as well by empowering them, right, to have an absolute deep belief in their own skills and abilities so they can confidently and courageously create success on their own terms and nail that dream job that is perfect for them, right? And so I don't just talk about career transition, although this topic can sometimes lead to a career transition or maybe a job transition or whatever you know. This actually depends on how you handle that conflict with your boss. But I also like to talk about the things that help you hold on to the job, help you adjust to that new job. So in one of my coaching programs I do just that. It's a longer coaching program. It is about 6 months long because it is, pretty much set up so that you get the job. And then I actually go 1 or 2 months with you into that job to help you maneuver. And this is one that can be kind of touchy, right? When I started off way back in the day, way long, many years ago, as a second lieutenant in the Army, I really messed up some stuff. I'm going to just say it, right? I did not handle conflict well at all. And I certainly didn't handle conflict with my boss. And it's a little difficult. It can be a little tricky. And I just want to be sure, as I see people hopping on, give me a one in the chat if you can hear me. I do. Welcome to you, as well as those of you who see this on Facebook. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you that are viewing this on YouTube, welcome to you as well as all of you, because I know a lot of you catch this on the replay. And so I want to thank you as well. So if you're on live, also drop live in the hashtag live in the comments, because I want to be sure, because I've actually done a live where nobody could actually hear me for the first 2-3 minutes. So we want to really avoid that, right? And so drop a live in the comments if you're live, and if you want, share with me where you are hopping on from. And just to be sure, I'm going to open up some tabs to be sure that it is live where it's supposed to be live and you all can hear me. I don't want you to miss one iota of this juicy stuff today, right? As I was saying, total fail. When it came to conflict, managing conflict, total fail. My first several jobs out of the gate were total fail because I didn't know how to deal with conflict. As someone who has social anxiety, I just didn't want to. I didn't know how to, and I didn't do a good job with this, right? And I'm going to tell you the biggest way that I messed up when it comes to handling conflict with a boss is I had conflict and I didn't address it, right? Typical person that thinks, well, you don't address it, it'll be smoothed over, it'll be okay if I don't say anything, if I go along to get along, everything will work out fine. At the time, that seemed like it would work. It doesn't. It doesn't. The number one thing that I would like to say out of the gate, if you're having conflict, let go of the belief that if you don't address it, if you just stuff it down, if you just go along to get along, it will get better because over time it actually gets worse, right? And then by the time you're ready to address, it's like the snowball that comes down the hill, starts like really tiny at the top, but by the time it gets mid-hill or at the bottom of the hill, it's like this giant thing rolling down the hill. That's how conflict with your boss ends up. And I have had friends, same thing. They thought they were cool, thought they were trusted, and the conflict didn't show up until it was evaluation time. And evaluation time came, and that's when they knew the conflict had not been resolved because the boss pinged them on their evaluation report. That is why it is much better to get the snowball here, deal with the snowball here versus letting it roll down that hill, pick up steam, and collect all kinds of junk. And then at the end, you're dinged on your evaluation report when you thought everything was fine, right? Anybody here kind of been in that situation where you just kind of let it ride, hoping it would get better, and it just kind of snowballed down the hill, got larger and larger and larger till it got to a point where it was darn near impossible to fix? See, that's what happens when you don't address the conflict up front, be it with your supervisor or with the coworker. And I know, like I said, someone who's an introvert and with social anxiety, I didn't know how to manage a conflict, and I was always afraid to speak up. But I learned it took me about 5.5 years before I finally went, okay, conflict, we're going to address this. And I'm going to tell you some tips about addressing it so you don't come off, because you don't want to come off as aggressive. Listen here, let me tell you what you will and won't do. You really don't want to do that with your supervisor. That's not a great way to come off, right? So number one, always address it as soon as you recognize it. If you're like me, you're always nervous about speaking to figures in authority. You feel scared about it. Talk it over with the confident, right? With a confidant, be it a coworker or someone outside. Practice with this person speaking up and saying things. And that way, when it's time for you to actually speak to your boss, right, you've practiced it enough and your brain pretty much knows what you're going to say. And it kind of takes away that nervousness, because I don't know about you, as someone with social anxiety, when I'm nervous, my hands shake, and then I'm trying to sit there and keep my hands from shaking, and my voice would crack and it would kind of tremble, and and you just don't come off confident when you do that. Believe me, I know. I have been there many times before. But if you practice it with someone else ahead of time, you can kind of, you'll be a little nervous, right? But you practice this, you can't see, but my hands are down on each of my knees, right? Put those hands down and lay them lightly against your knees, right? And if you get a little nervous, if you want to kind of squeeze your knees a little bit, that gives you something to do with your hands rather than them shaking, because I hate it. I mean, that was the one thing I hated. When I got nervous, my hands would shake, but then if I thought people saw my hands shaking, I would get even more nervous, and it would just be like a total train wreck. That's how it is when you have social anxiety. So yes, put those hands down on your knees. And if you need a little strength, rather than, because what I'll do when I get nervous is I'll tap my hands. So you don't want to do this either, because people can see that you're either agitated, irritated, getting angry, or you're nervous. So you don't want to do this because you're leaving up to their interpretations. But put your hands down on your knees. And if you need, squeeze your knees a little bit. If you just need that extra comfort, you can squeeze those knees as well. And what you do is when we actually hug ourselves or someone hugs you, we produce oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone. That's what it feels so good when people hold you. That way you can kind of produce some of your own by squeezing your knees. If you need a little comfort, if you need a little bit of courage, you can do that. And no one has to see what you're doing because you do it lightly, right? And that gives you a little bit of courage, and it gives you something, like I said, to do with those hands so that they don't shake. Because again, that was my thing. Trembling hands was always a giveaway that I was either scared or angry. And most of the time it was scared, right? Because I was afraid to speak up about conflict. So those are just some of the tips that I had to learn to use to address conflict, because I wasn't really good at it. And I don't sit here and say that I'm perfect at it. There are some things that I know out of the gate I will hit because I can see the snowball coming if I don't. There are other things I may play around with. And that is always, it's a depends situation. it depends on where you are with that supervisor, what kind of supervisor that is. And I just want to check to see if I have any comments because I can really get going. Yes, Cherry is on live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Do drop comments and let me know if you have any questions or comments. But, I really am doing a lot of this from my perspective because I didn't handle conflict well, period.com out of the gate for probably the first 15, 20 years of my career. I didn't handle conflict well. And these are just some of the tips that I now use, things that will help you to calm. Again, if you have anxiety, because it's nervous, right? Because like I said, it depends on who your boss is. Some bosses do not like to be challenged. And if you speak up and say, hey, whatever, everything that you speak up and try to say, they view it as a challenge to your authority. There are some bosses out there like that. They're not all like that. Some of them generally want to hear what you have to say. And so really it just, it's you sitting down figuring out which type of boss do you have? Do you have someone that's angry anytime she feels her authority is questioned or he feels his authority is questioned? Do you have a passive aggressive supervisor who just really try to sweep that stuff off and try to pretend everything's good? Or do you have someone who's open to ideas, right? Because each of those will determine how you put into practice the tips I'm going to share with you, some of the ones I've already shared with you, right? So one of the things that happens when I get nervous is my nose itches and is twitching now. So a lot of people don't know that I have social anxiety because I do lives, but I still do. And I have techniques that I do and I teach my clients to manage the social anxiety. So now I just come out and say, look, I'm a little bit nervous. My nose is twitching. So when you see me doing this, sometimes it just is. It's probably also I'm in Alabama. There's a lot more pollen down here. So my nose may twitch. I may scratch it, rub it a little bit, but everything will be okay, right? So saying, right? So again, that relationship, when it's troubling with the supervisor, when there's conflict, it's very troubling because again, some supervisors are vindictive. They will say, yes, we talked about it. Things are great. And then like my friend did, he rolled around about 10 months later and it like stuck it to him on evaluation. But if you can use these tips out of the gate, addressing it and taking your time, again, write out what you're going to say. Practice it with the friend. If you're going to have a friend you can practice with, then do like I teach my clients to do. I teach my clients to interview them. When you answer interview questions, answer by practicing and looking yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the eyes in a mirror and say what you have to say. It teaches you to hold eye contact, like stare people down, but you hold that eye contact and you're looking away. You just make it natural. If you don't have a friend to practice with, practice in the mirror. The thing is when you're practicing, right? You're practicing over and over. You're just building newer pathways. You're remembering the words you want to say. When it's time to deliver, you're a little bit less nervous because you'll know what you're going to say already. And your brain will just follow that path of what you've already practiced. And so that's a great thing about practicing. It really is a good thing for answering interview questions as well as talking to your boss when you have that conflict, right? And so again, it is uncomfortable talking to a boss about conflict, but like I said before, and I'll say it a couple more times, you want to try to do it as early as possible when you notice there's conflict. You don't want the snowball effect where it gets downhill and it's so gigantic where you do need to just change jobs because the conflict isn't going to change. That can happen, and it has happened. And I've unfortunately let it get to that point where I ended up changing jobs because it just wasn't going to get fixed because I let it go on too long. Right. And by the time I got up the nerve to say something, it was just a huge, big old mess, just gigantic snowball, hard to get around and see and talk. So you don't want to do it there again, upfront, as close as possible. So the first thing you want to do is when you figure out something, right, write that stuff down, write it down. Because sometimes what you'll do, especially if you have anxiety or you're an introvert, you just don't like conflict, you will explain away stuff. You'll have it here in your mind. It's probably not that bad. I'm probably imagining things. I'm sure she didn't mean it like that. I'm sure he didn't mean it like that. Now they've said the same thing or done the same thing like 10, 15, 20 times, but you're still going in your head. You're trying to reason away. It's probably not that bad. I'm sure it's just my imagination. Write it down, document. It gets it out of your headspace, down to paper. And if you see it once and then you see it those other 9 times, like, okay, this is truly an issue. I've noted this down 9 times. And now I'm beginning to see how they act with other people and they do the same thing, or I am the only one they're doing it to. Conflict, right? Acknowledge that conflict, be aware of it and acknowledge it. Conflict isn't bad in and of itself. It's just if you don't handle it well, that's what makes it bad. But when you're anxious, it's hard to think that. But really, conflict is not bad, right? Conflict in a workplace, really, if it's handled well, the team really goes far if it's handled well. All right. And so the first thing to do is really schedule that meeting with your boss. Hey, I got something I want to talk to you about, and I would like to set up a meeting with you. Don't be pushed into if they're walk, 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 go, go, go. Okay, come and talk to me now. You don't want to do that because number one, you're it's not a level playing field. You're not quite ready at that moment. You need a one-on-one with your boss where nothing else is intruding in that. So it should be a meeting. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting, but you do want to have it to where he or she is not busy rushing and trying to get to the next, well, walk with me and you got like 3 minutes until they get to the next destination. You don't really want to be like that. You want it to be a scheduled meeting where you sit down with it. Okay. Any questions on anything? I'm going to check over on the other platforms to be sure. Yes, I am live. Yes, yes, yes. There I go. I see me. I see me. Okay. So, yes, I actually did that live on camera. But yes, and the reason why is this was such a tough topic for me, 15, 20 years ago when I first started. So I do want to introduce a little bit of levity so it's not like, oh, yeah, it kind of feels like that, or at least it did for me when I was addressing my boss, right? And so the one thing that you want to do is go in and acknowledge that person's position and respect them. Like I said, you don't want to go in like, you and I need to talk because I got something I got to get off my chest now. You hear me? I need to get this off my chest now. No, that's not how you want to go in because that attitude says it communicates to you. If you were on the other end of what I just did, you're defensive. Automatically, you are defensive because literally I came off aggressive and it felt like you're being attacked. So, wrong way to start. You do not want to start there. It really is about acknowledging that person, respecting them, respecting their position, right? And you really want to start off by getting understanding, right? You want to get their understanding. You want to acknowledge that, yes, understand your supervisor. And I actually did some research on you. I love this about you. You do this well. And I love how I can learn this from you, right? You want to do that, not going at like, here, wrong, 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 wrong. You don't want to be aggressive. You also don't want to be passive either. So I'm not saying be passive. You don't want to be aggressive, but you also don't want to be a passive. You want to be assertive. That's the tone that you're looking for, is assertive, right? And then ask the open-ended questions. Ask and make sure that when you've presented this problem, you want to ask those questions. Ask open-ended questions to be sure that you're getting a great understanding of where that person is coming from, right? And so Cherry says, what if my supervisor starts off the conversation aggressively with me? It turns me off. Yes, but see, you've already practiced, right, Sherry? Because you've written out what you want to say and you've written out the examples. See, yes, you're writing that stuff out. And so if they come off aggressive to you, be assertive, not passive. And the wrong thing to do is be aggressive back because then you get two aggressive dogs barking and nothing's going to get resolved, right? That is the point of writing down what you want to say, what the ideas are, have your examples. And I finally started learning how to do this, and I'm going to tell you, I'm sitting here now, kind of covering my face because I stammered over stuff, but I did know what I was going to say, so I did let them know this is the issue, and this is how I see it. How do you see it, right? And so they can be aggressive, but my mother told me something over and over again coming up as a kid. You kill people with kindness, and it's not so much as about, again, this is not being passive. I don't want you to think you're at all being passive, be assertive, right? Aggressive people and people who are angry, right? Anger is an anxiety emotion. Some people get anxious and they get nervous and they stumble over words, you get throat freeze and all of that. But some people get anxious and they get angry, right? So anger is an anxiety emotion. A lot of people don't know that. So someone's coming off at you aggressive and being angry, take that as a form of anxiety. Like, he or she is not managing that anxiety very well right now. But I'm going to manage mine because it's just important that you manage yours. Your job is never to manage anyone else's feelings. You also don't want to go, it looks like you're angry now. Never tell people that what they feel. Okay, and Facebook user says, I'm number two. Okay, so let me go back and see who that is on Facebook. And I'm not sure what you're saying. You're a number two. So tell me what that means. And I'm not going to say your name unless you give me permission to do it. But tell me what you mean by you're a number two. And you're welcome, Cherry. She says a good point, right? And so, even if your boss looks like they're coming off at you angry and aggressive, don't tell them you're being aggressive with me. Don't tell them you're being angry. Don't tell people what they feel because at that point they're being aggressive. They may be anxious as crap, but they don't feel like they are, or they may be sounding like they're angry, but they don't feel like they are. So you don't want to tell them what they are, but you can say, right now, that tone of voice and that loud tone of voice is really making me feel nervous a little bit now. I'm here to get some things on here to work on this because I enjoy working here and I enjoy my job. Oops, sorry, that's my ring going off because I didn't silence my phone. Oops. So yeah, so never tell the person you are angry or you're aggressive. You communicate to them what you're feeling. What you're feeling. Your behavior right now is making me feel angry, frightened, bit nervous, right? Tell them what it's making you feel. So Facebook, so you're saying you're number two, you're angry. Gotcha. Okay. So, that's how if they come off aggressive, you don't return it because again, you're just two dogs barking and nothing will get resolved because then there's one person trying to outbark the other. And well, guess what? They're the boss. So at the end of the day, whether they win the argument or you win it, you still got to get paid at some point. You still got an evaluation. At some point, they will get you at the other end because some people are like that. So just don't get into a pissing contest. I mean, don't. It doesn't go typically bode well for you. Right. So the Facebook user says true. And so let me know, Facebook user, if I can use your name. Because if not, I'll be sure that I go around that. So the Facebook user said, I had a problem at work. I asked the supervisor what's wrong, and her response is, you tell me. She's exactly right. Try to never bring up a problem that you don't have a solution for. Right? That's the thing. So the better answer is if someone is consistently giving the jobs and projects to someone else. So they're going, well, what's wrong? Well, clearly you see what's bothering you. Saying, hey, I noticed this. Can you tell me what's going on with that? I noticed that everyone else has triple projects, but I only have one. And can you tell me what's going on? I'm ready to take my place. I'm ready to help the team out. Always tell them what you see and what you perceive. And saying, what's up with that? That's an open-ended question. Now you toss it back. Here's what I'm seeing. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on with that? Is an open-ended question and allows them to fill in. Because remember, you see it one way. There is his way, your way. Somewhere in the middle is actually the truth. We all have a lens. We all see the world through our own lenses, right? But it doesn't make our lens exactly right. It doesn't make it wrong either. Therefore, your supervisor's lens is not all wrong. It may not be all right either. But somewhere in the middle is the truth. And asking open-ended questions gets you to the truth. And it gets you out of sounding like you're attacking or you're labeling people. And so the Facebook user says, I was trying to figure out why she treated me this way. Yes, but you got to tell her what way she's treating you. It feels like you are kind of biased against me, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not sure I use a bias word because it's kind of a tech. I would say, it seems like there's a little friction between us. I don't know if you noticed it. Have you noticed that? Right? Did you notice anything different? Have you noticed that? Toss it back at them. So the Facebook worker says, that didn't work. I felt attacked. Right. Well, some people do feel attacked. That's why you want to stick to the open ended questions. You can only show what you feel. If you say what's wrong, you leave up to interpretation about what you saw that you think is wrong. Right. I addressed this on a number of occasions. Well, if you've addressed it on a number of occasions and it's not working, that points to what I was telling you about before. If you can't resolve the conflict and you tried everything you can, and if you've got like a board, or some folks have a conflict committee you go to. If you tried everything and it's not working, then what step do you think you need to take? Let me toss that back at you. What step do you think you need to take? Because if it's documented, you should definitely be document, right? Because what's not written doesn't exist. And so that's why if you go in and say, sit down, let's talk, and you come in with your, I got my little pole mill here because I was a little hot and I was fanning a little bit. Okay. You go in with your documentation. Yeah, I feel like there may be some friction between us because on this date when da 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 and I da 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 da, you da 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 da, I kind of felt it there a little bit. And then when this over here happened and that over here, I felt it again. And then when I saw this, and I saw, go in with your documents, give specific situations when you saw it, right? Now, you be prepared for what you get. Some supervisors do feel challenged. They feel the authority is being challenged and they attack. Remember, anger is an anxiety emotion. So if they're anxious and they're nervous and they're scared, they attack. That's what some people do. When folks get angry, that is because they feel like they've been threatened, they've been attacked, or they feel like their feelings haven't been acknowledged and they get angry. That's a defensive mechanism to get angry and on the attack, because you attack. No one can see the hurt behind that, right? That's typically what happens. So, but if you go in with things written down, date and times and things, and you may not want to take everything you've written down, but take a few of those situations. Take maybe 4 or 5 of them going and say, yeah, when yeah. And I was going to say, that's it. That's what I was getting at. If you try to do the conflict resolution and it ain't working, be sure you're looking for another job, because sometimes you've let it roll. The snowball has rolled down the hill and you can't fix that. It's just a big old mess. It's just a big old mess at the end. And you can't fix it. And I know it no shame, no harm. I've been there. I've let the snowball roll down the hill and I couldn't fix it. And I had to get another job. That was the best solution for me, right? You just walk away to another job, preferably. It depends on what's going down. So she said I was doing that. I was writing everything down. Yeah, and sometimes, she says, had meetings with HR and it felt like I was a bad guy, because you were. HR is not on your side. HR is on the company side. So you were the bad guy. A lot of people don't understand HR is the company's mechanism. It's not yours. Now, that's not saying that you don't have some really great HR folks out there and they will pull you to the side and say, hey, I just want to let you know XYZ. I just want to be sure you understand this. There's some really great people out there that will do that for you. But at the end of the day, their job is to protect management, not to protect you. So they were not on your side. And what I was going to say is sometimes if you have, depending on what's going on, right? If you feel like you've been discriminated against, there's sexual harassment because of sexual orientation, religion, gender preference, race, any of that stuff, take your documentation to an attorney, and a lot of them give you like their 30-minute consult, and have them look over what you got and see if there's anything to it. That's always my suggestion when people get there. They get to that point. Yes, but when you go to HR, understand HR is a company person. They're all day long. You don't hire them. You don't give them a job. You don't pay their paycheck. The company does. So they're company first. And then you're down somewhere down the road, if you're even on a list at all. But yes. So the Facebook user says, I guess I didn't talk to her about everyone else. So she felt away. There's always a complaint on her. That's Cherry says she has a similar situation as you do. She also documented the conversation, spoke with her manager in HR, and they both did not do anything. Again, they're They're the company. They're gonna circle the wagons and take care of that manager, unless the manager is really done some off stuff like broke a couple of laws, discriminated against, and then they're kind of look at each other like, all right, let's do we cut our losses here and let the person hang out there by themselves? They don't always do that very often, but they may if that person is definitely broken away. But yes, if you're documenting documents and you think you've been discriminated against because of those protected classes I just said, it does not hurt to talk to attorney, get that free consultation, and let us, hey, where do I go with this? And they may say, look, you just need to find another job. And oftentimes it is, right? But sometimes we'll get pushed to that point again because the snowball's just about down the end of the hill. And that's what you got. You just gotta move. You gotta transition that job and move. But it's better to do that and go out under your own auspices than to be fired or let go, right? So Facebook user says, but this is their motto. They don't tolerate this, but they was letting it go on. Yeah, that some folks do have policy. Doesn't mean they always operate by it, but then and that's why I also coach my ladies when you're getting ready to get a job. Look up how many EOC complaints there are against your employer. If there are a bunch here and there, that's a clue. You may not want to work there because if a lot of people have filed, it's on record. EOC, once they investigate the complaint, they put it out there, right? I was really shocked when I first started studying about this and looking at those EOC complaints against employers. When it's out there, it's out there. It'll tell you all you need to know. Facebook, you said that still does not give a person to be treated that way. Correct. But if you stay and be treated that way, you're allowing it. Go. Document it. If you talk to your attorney and say you got a case, if they say you don't, then that means go. It's just time to go. You can't fix it. Like some folks say, you can't fix stupid. You can't fix toxic. You alone cannot fix a toxic work environment. Leave it. That's it. Okay. Facebook, you say, I talked to a lawyer and was told that the company sucks and leave because I didn't have a case. Bam. I just said that. You don't have a case, leave. You can, as a lone person, you can't fix stupid and you can't fix toxic. Right. And so when, we're talking about these 3 steps here, and I tell you step 1 was acknowledging and respecting that person's, your boss as a boss, and tell them what you like about them, what they do well before you hit the, here's what you need to improve on, right? Here's why it's wrong. Do pick out the things and be genuine. Don't be lying. You could, because you could lie if you want to, but actually being genuine is much better. Typically most people kind of sort of do something you like, search around and find however minuscule it is, right? And so these questions are like, do it at the beginning of the conflict and not after the snowball has rolled down the hill, right? Now, and then when you're talking about this discussion, you don't want to come off like, you keep treating me mean and you keep treating everybody else nice, and I got issues with that and I don't like it, because so what? You don't like it, so what? So, right. So when you frame the issue, you want to frame it as a company thing. Here's what I see that we can get resolved. Right. And so I've changed time zone. And so evidently my alarm didn't get that because it's now going off telling me I'm supposed to be doing a live in a few minutes. So you want to frame that issue as, say, hey, here's an issue I see, and I would like to get it resolved because I think it will help the company do this, help me do that. You want to frame it like that, not just, I don't think you like me and I want to know why you don't like me. I'm a nice person. Everybody should like me. So what? I'm not being dismissive because, again, I'm a recovering people pleaser. So yes, I want everybody to like me. I do. I have social anxiety. I want everybody to like me, but that's my expectations. Has nothing to do with anyone else, right? So when you frame that issue, frame it as a common goal for the company, right? How does it help the company? How does it help the company be better? How does it help your boss get better, right? Stay on the topic until you find something that both of you can agree with. I saw this and I think if we resolve it, it'll help us do that. Don't you agree? Or what do you think about if we resolve this? What do you think about that, right? company goal, not you don't like me and I want to understand why because I want everybody to like me. Nobody, that's your expectation. It's not necessary. It's a wonderful thing when everybody likes you. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you somebody with social anxiety is not a wonderful thing, but it's not necessary. As long as you respect people, you don't always have to like them. All right. Because Congress, like back in the day, Congress, a lot of them didn't like each other's policy, but they came together and worked for the good of the country. Back in the day, you saw a lot of that. Some of you before your time was born, but there was a time that Congress, Democrats and moderate Democrats and Republicans and moderate Republicans, they actually all worked together for a common good. That used to happen a lot. I mean, you wouldn't know that now, but it used to happen a lot. You don't have to agree with someone else's position to respect them and get along. Right. But when you learn to manage conflict, it's important to note that it's not about getting the person to see that you're supposed to like me and I just have to have everybody to like me. Now, if they are mistreating you, or they're being dismissive, they're being disrespectful, yes, call that out. When you do X, I feel disrespected. When you do this or say that, I feel dismissed. Because let's just be honest here. I've been on some jobs where men have been dismissive of me. I would talk and they would dismiss and look over me and go to the next meal and talk. All right, so we're not talking about being passive. If that's an issue, call that stuff out, right? That's not you need to like me. No, you need to respect me. Stop dismissing me because that's how it feels when you do this, when you don't acknowledge my emails. And then you say, I didn't do something, but I gave it to you, you just didn't acknowledge the emails, but you read everyone else's because we're here talking. See, that's a valid thing. You can put your hand on and say that's an issue, right? Cherry says, my supervisor accused me of being disrespectful, and my coworkers told me I did not do anything disrespectful to her. How would I respond? So when she accuses me of this, so you need to get inside her lens, see what she and why she believes. That's where they're open-ended questions. So let me understand you. You felt when I told you I'm tired that was disrespectful to you. Is that what I hear you saying? Well, yeah, that's what. So what exactly? So when you heard, was it the tired that triggered you and you felt disrespectful? Was it? Tell me more about that. And so, what word would you have liked me to use versus using tired? Because I really, was not my intention to disrespect you because I do respect you, my supervisor. So what word or phrase would you have preferred I use that wouldn't have sounded disrespectful to you? So you got to get inside of her lens and see what it is because it may not exactly, here's what happens a lot. Some folks, when they left the house that morning, they got to arguing with their spouse or their children or their teenage child, and they are really ticked off from that. And they stroll on into work and they brought all that baggage with them. When you said something, it triggered them to that argument and they just jumped all over you. You're being disrespectful. It may not even have been you. It may have been that person issue they had at the house before they came in. We're human beings. It happens way more than you think. Way more than you think because people carry that baggage. I've always been a person, I've always checked that at the door, but that's me. Not everybody does. And it could have been, someone else before you said those words and they felt disrespected. So when they heard them roll out of your mouth, they assumed disrespect too. That's why you want to get inside that person's lens, get inside their mind. What was it I said that you felt disrespected? What could I have said rather than that? Let them tell you what the words are that they would have liked to have heard. And then you give them, well, hey, here's the words you said you needed. Right. And so I just want to help you to understand I wasn't disrespectful of you because depending on what culture you come from, I give you a really good idea. And I've been guilty of this. I was guilty of this. I used to teach school. And one of my Hispanic kids did something, came in too late, and I was like one tardy away from having to write him up and send him to the office. And so I took him outside to talk to him, and he wouldn't meet me in the eye. And I was like, I'm talking to you. You should look me in the eye. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Him not looking me in the eye was not disrespectful. That was a sign of respecting his culture. See, I was wrong. We did not see eye to eye. I did not understand his culture at that time. And then I took some classes, I took some training, and I did some reading up on his culture, and I had to backtrack that stuff. Just because certain kids don't look me in the eye doesn't mean disrespect. It is a sign of respect. They don't look authority in the eye. And I had to learn that. See, the words that you use may not have been disrespectful to you, may not have been disrespectful to your coworkers, but it was for her for whatever reason it was. Find out what the reason is. And then ask her, what would you like for me to have said instead? Right? Because it is about you being open and honest. And again, we have lenses. When I say lenses, my lens may be purple, yours may be pink, someone else may be yellow. When we look through the same situation at those lenses, you got a pink, a yellow, and a purple way of viewing that. Doesn't mean we're wrong. It doesn't also mean that we're right either. And that's what you have to look at conflict. We have to walk away from that. I'm right, you're wrong. We may both be right, we may both be wrong. We just need to come to an agreement about what we should do and what we should be seeing. Right? Any comments out there? Thank you all for participating in comments. I just want to be sure that I haven't missed any comments out there. So step number 2 we talked about is framing the discussion in light of the job. Make it a common goal. How does it make things better, right? And then after, you talked all the stuff, you're looking for mutually, something that's a great outcome for the both of you. You want it mutual. Not, I just need you to say that you were wrong and that I was right. No. Okay, because most of us don't like to say I was wrong, right? We love to say I'm right. We don't like to say I'm wrong. Well, that shouldn't be the goal. Although, again, when someone is being dismissive of you, when they're being disrespectful of your religion, of your race, your creed, something like that, that's different. You really need to lay out what the issue is. Here's what you did. Here's how I felt violated. Here's how I felt disrespected. Okay. And so when it comes from, like I was with that student, making that student look me in the eye when that wasn't what his culture taught him to. So there's not a right there. I was wrong. Now, what he done, the tardiness was incorrect, but I was wrong. So both of us had some wrong there, right? Me a little bit more because I should have studied up on his culture ahead of time, right? And so, but again, when you're talking about people being racist, being sexist, someone's got a dirty picture up and everybody's hanging around talking about it and whatnot, and you feel like it's kind of no right in there, but you need to say something. You cannot see them around the picture and not say something. Because if you don't say something, you haven't let them know this is incorrect. Because when you do this, I feel respected because this. You always have to speak up and let them know. Okay. And then, once you've got number 2, where you set that meeting up and you acknowledged, respected that person, you laid out the issue, and then you've done it in a way that says it's a common goal that we need to resolve so we can get going, make this better, bigger, higher, make more money, whatever it is you do. Then you need to say, hey, what can I give you my viewpoint, how I see things? You want to ask that, right? But you want to do that after having sought that person, especially in the case where I believe Cherry was saying that her supervisor said I was disrespectful. I didn't think I was. Well, get in there and see. And when they say that, then it comes up, well, so when you heard me say this, so it could be from my culture. When I say that, that's not disrespectful. That's not how I see it. I can now, however, see your viewpoint. I can see how you would see that's disrespectful, right? Because some of us are passive aggressive. I'm gonna own up to that a little bit. Okay, a lot. Um, you know, there was a time where I wasn't gonna say anything to you, but I was quick to do this number here and then turn around with a straight face. So that whole eye roll thing was disrespectful. It doesn't have to be words. That whole eye roll thing is typically most of us regard that. We'll see that as disrespectful. Passive aggressively, I might add, but it's disrespectful nonetheless. So if you're doing some stuff like that and people notice it, own up to it. Own up to your stuff, own up to your mess, right? And so I don't do that anymore because I do tend to address conflict up front, no matter how it is. Again, I'm writing stuff out. How do I want to say this, playing in my mind, practice it. I actually do those things so I can get to the point. Sometimes, for some folks, if you're a little nervous, sometimes you can do this in an email. And you see me doing like this. You could do it in an email. Understanding that words are they're just piece, some words on a piece of paper, and they don't always carry the connotation that you want them to, which is why you want to, if possible, do this in a meeting so that you don't leave anything up to interpretation. You said what you said, you were able to get across what you meant and make sure that the other person heard you. But some things we're doing it more with email now, right? It happens. There's a lot of Zoom meetings because people are not there in person, that kind of thing. And some folks are actually text. They like to text us to do this stuff. I really would try hard not to do it in text because words lose their connotation. You don't want to be misunderstood even further. So Cherry says, my first conversation with her, she called me a know-it-all and acting like a supervisor because I was more knowledgeable than her, and she did not give me a chance to speak. So if that's the case, and if you were in a meeting with her, it wasn't the So let me know if you can hear me. My hotspot dropped. I have no idea. I just saw that my VPN shut off, which told me that my hotspot would have shut off too. Can you hear me, Cherry? Not drop a one in the comments if you can hear me. Okay, so Facebook user, I have no idea. I just saw my VPN dropped, which told me that my internet dropped too. So I'm on a mobile hotspot. Phone's not overheating. I'm not sure what's, and I'm gone again. Wow, I don't know what is going on. Okay, so the Facebook user can hear me. It looks like YouTube is having problems hearing me. Okay, so Cherry says I'm back again. My apologies. I don't know what's going on. I didn't change anything, so I'm not sure what's going on. But my VPN is back as well, so I'm back. I'm back again. So, um, but so yeah, so Cherry, that's a sign of a supervisor who's intimidated, and it's not a you issue. It's not you haven't done anything wrong, but it's about that's like immediate start documenting because it's just it may not get better. I've actually had Cherry says welcome back. Yay, I'm back. I've actually gone on to have some really good relationships from people who felt like walking in the door, I intimidate them. It's because they don't know me. And I'd be honest with you, as an introvert and a someone with social anxiety, I'm not the reach out and touch everybody person. When I'm new, I'm more of a sit back and just be quiet and observe and look what's going on. But that makes some people nervous because they don't know how to interpret that. But Cherry, I would go in one on one with her. When you said that I was a know it all and you think I'm a supervisor, could you kind of tell me about that? because that made it seem like, whatever you felt like. Um, one on one, right? And if that didn't work, right, then certainly, and it, I would say email with that documented at that point, the conversation. And you can, even sometimes, even when it's one-on-one and you're just talking, right, you can actually follow up that with an email. And I do advise doing that. Hey, thank you for the meeting earlier. When we spoke about this. I said this, you said that, I understood this. Is that what you understand? And zing that off in the email, because that's documentation, right? You can date, timestamp, all this stuff is documented for you. And I've had to do that with some supervisors. Some people are just, your supervisors are not know-it-alls. They don't, or no, they're not, they don't know everything. They don't know it all, and they, in some cases, they're learning like you are. And some of us as supervisors, I've been a manager, supervisor. Some of us are just saying, look, I don't know everything. I'm willing to learn. I'm open to that. But some folks are not secure enough yet to do that, and it can make it difficult for working with them, which is why I'm doing this topic, because it's touchy, right? And you feel like you're attacked. So it is about learning how to resolve that conflict. But yeah, I would definitely, so we were talking earlier, you said I was a know-it-all and I was acting like a supervisor. Can you explain to me what I did that makes you say that? Get those words, get those open-ended questions, and get the words, get that person to tell you what they're seeing that really is making them anxious. Again, anger is an anxiety emotion. Some people don't just get anxious, they get angry, right? And some people can get vindictive along with that. It happens. I've seen it. It happens. And some folks they play nice, and then all the way to the end, till they get to the evaluation report, and they just slam you. And I've seen it. I've seen grown men cry because they thought they did everything, they resolved it, and got all the way to the end. And supervisor's like, nah, you pissed me off that day. Yeah, I still remember that. So there you go. At that point, there's really not a lot you can do unless you documented some stuff along the way. Sometimes you do have to leave. That's just the answer. You do have to do, a transition, maybe not a career transition, but a transition to a different role, sometimes within that organization, sometimes somewhere else, right? So, uh, so Cherry says, I was able to say it at the time when she talked for 20 minutes and would not let me speak. So I was very done with the conversation. Yeah, and again, people are trying to make, some folks need to put people down to feel that they're somebody. And saying that, throwing that out at you and trying to overtalk you, and she's trying to push you and lower your esteem in other people's eyes so she can build herself up and look good. That's why people do that. It doesn't always work. But again, if you see that it's going to be an issue, start documenting. I've changed the job in less than 2 months, about 2 months. I was like, this is not going to work. Just not. This isn't going to. I never want to leave a job in 2 months, but there you have it. I did. I left in 2 months. I was gone. I think I worked August, I worked September, and October 5th, I was in a new job. Just the way it happens. Because if you look out and the snowball is there and it's already pushed, it starts to roll downhill, and you're using these tactics, you're trying to resolve the anxiety, the conflict, and it's not getting better. That's like clue bells running, red flags dropping all over the place. Start looking for something else. It's better to have something else and leave. And, that next conversation is, yes, I really tried to work this out, but, I saw this, I saw that, and I thought it just best to leave because I was really interested in doing my job. I don't want to have to deal with a lot of conflict. Both people are not willing to jump in and work. Right. She said, I wish I was, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it sometimes it's best to let that at that moment go, and that always depends on sometimes what the person is saying. Now, calling you a know-it-all is different than calling you, like the N word, or the N word for calling someone a Hispanic or a Jew. If someone says it at the point, you probably want to address that right there, so that you have witnesses say, no, that was disrespect. When you said this, it disrespected me in that language. I don't tolerate. And I've said that to a supervisor. I did. This person outranked me by 2 grades, and I was like, I don't tolerate that. I don't tolerate. You said this, it was disrespectful. I don't tolerate that. I will never disrespect you like that. And so I expect for you to treat me with the same kind of respect. And that was just like, nervous and whatever saying, but I was like stammering a little bit, but I got that out. I don't tolerate that. I don't tolerate that. And so that's a little different than this. Again, there are some things when people, again, they're disrespecting you or they're being racist or discriminating against you. That's a different conversation because, again, you definitely want to document date, time, spaces, all that stuff, right? But some of this, when supervisors don't like you, they're jealous of you, they're intimidated by you, it's not like you really have a case. And if you can't resolve it, it's just best to look at, like try to work it out, but also be over here working like, okay, let me network and see what else is available. Because sometimes that's your answer. You got to go. You know, you may not want to. Sometimes you can go somewhere else because I've seen people transition to other sections in a company because they kind of knew their boss had that supervisor had some issues and they didn't want to lose a great employee. So it's like, okay, let's just move you over here. I've done that. I've left one and went somewhere else in another part of the company because that supervisor had an issue, and I was very much, I don't tolerate this. You don't get to yell at me. You don't get to scream at me, and I'm different, right? Even with the social anxiety, I didn't do that yelling stuff. Number one, it was a trigger for me, so I didn't want people yelling at me. That was definitely a trigger. So you can see how I kind of had some issues being in the army, right? But I was very quiet about it, but I was like, there are things I don't tolerate. Now, the older I got and the better I got with resolving conflict, again, I was trying to address it before the snowball started going down the hill, but I did a lot better. But this sometimes the statement was just, I don't tolerate that. I do not tolerate that. And it was always, I respect you. I'm going to respect you. And in return, you need to respect me as well because I don't tolerate XYZ. Right. And so for me, again, being cussed out is a trigger for me. You don't get to be my boss and cuss me out. That has just been me my entire career. And I know some people, there's a lot of cussing going on in different places. This is not my thing. I don't do it, and I don't want anybody else to do it for me. And I've been on some jobs and customers started cussing me. I was like, I don't tolerate cursing. So if you keep doing that, I'm going to hang up on you. And it was like, oh, I'll cuss you. I was like, okay, hanging up, click, bye, whatever. And I called my boss up. Hey, if they said I hung up on them, I sure did. She was cussing me out. I told her to respect me. She couldn't. So I hung up. In the story. So it's about what you respect and what you tolerate, but name it, be aware of it, call it out, what the incident was, how you felt, why it made you feel that way, and here's what you expect and would like in the future, right? And be sure it's mutual. Now, something like, disrespecting you, being dismissive, it's hard to be like, you can call me that word, but don't call me this. No, that's just I don't tolerate that. And so and you just have to be to say that you don't have to scream it. Again, I'm not a screamer anyway. I've never been a screamer on my jobs, but it's always said it very quietly and very matter of factly and very assertively. I don't tolerate this. This is not going to work for me. I will prefer XYZ. If you're upset with me, I'm fine with you walking away until you calm down, and then we can get back together and talk. And I've said that, and that's worked as well. So, again, it depends on what kind of boss you says. So, you know, again, the whole point when you go through these three steps, right? You're setting up that meeting and, being respectful, getting the other person's perspective, forming it as a common goal and solution for the company. And then, asking if at this time you can, share your viewpoint, how you see it. All of that, you want to remain calm. Even if they're aggressive with you, remain assertive. Even if they're angry with you, remain assertive. Even if they're passive aggressive with you, remain assertive. Because again, I have had folks, I was in the army, and I can tell you this, I never got cussed out. And I was in the army because I'm tolerating that. I'm not doing that. It was quiet, and I got some people. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't an easy walk, and I got some folks that had nasty attitudes with me, but they cussed me out. I didn't tolerate that. That wasn't my thing. That's not something you can do to me. That was a trigger for me. Now they had their issues. Yeah, they talked about me. I didn't get the plum assignments and all that kind of stuff, but at the very end of the day, they respected me, and that respect was more than some other things that I went through, right? But again, if I can impress upon you two things: remain calm and be assertive. This is not about being passive in any way. Now, research does say that when we're passive aggressive on our jobs because our bosses are aggressive, it does make us feel better and handle stress a little better. There's some research out there. If you want that research, drop research in the comments. I will send it to you because they actually did research on that and found it out, which I thought was really great. Because when I was in my social anxiety days, I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't assertive, but I was darn sure passive aggressive. But they shouldn't do that either. I'm just saying, I learned how to do better with that. But definitely be assertive, be calm, and document, and write it down, date time. So when you go to your boss, don't just say what's wrong. Here's what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? Right? Open-ended question. If you go with the problem, always have a solution. Always have a couple of solutions how you think you can resolve that. That works better than saying there's a problem, right? Because managers are busy, supervisors are busy, and they don't always have time to fix problems, but they will respect when you come with a couple of different solutions. They can respect that. So I've done that as well. Learned to do that years ago, and that has actually worked, right? And always address the conflict when it's the beginning of a snowball, because the longer you let the snowball roll, the more crap, accrues, and it gets hard to fix the conflict when you have let the snowball get halfway down the hill or at the hill. Sometimes the solution is you need to find another job if you let it go that long. Okay. So, any other questions? This is say NT. Any other questions out there? Questions or comments? I do appreciate. And she says, okay, that one, I answered that one. Any other comments? Because if not, I am getting ready to sign off. Thanks for your participation. And again, those of you who catches on the replay, do put down replay, and thank you for catching those replay. I do appreciate you guys for being on live today. If this is an issue for you, and you, especially if you are like me, you just have problems confronting conflict in with your boss and whatnot, and you really want to know what to do, how to do it, set up. I do a free consultation, so let me drop that in there. Thank you, Facebook Live. She said, great live. And Sherry says, thank you for your time and help. Absolutely. This was so hard for me to do the first 2 decades of my career, and I didn't do it well. I'll be honest with you. I was horrible at it. All of my stuff, I pretty much let stuff snowball. I let it snowball. The only thing that I didn't let snowball was the cussing me out thing. That was a trigger, because of some trauma I've had before in my life. So that was a definite trigger, and I was just pretty much forced to speak up because that was a trigger, and I didn't do, right. And so I'm gonna drop my link here. Do set up a 15-minute consultation. I know for some people this is tough. You've heard me say, be positive and respect the person and come to a mutual agreement. There are some idiots out there who are bosses, but there are also idiots out there who are employees, right? And so we got to try to be less of an idiot together. And whomever you are, it does help working your way through reframing it, and that's something that I'm really great at doing. I had two clients that came in for two different clients that came in. Now, both came to see me for anxiety. I do a lot of anxiety coaching within my career coaching. Both of them came to me for anxiety reasons. And in my helping them, I found out that both of them were being managed out of their jobs. So sometimes people will treat you that way if they're managing you out of the job. They just want you to quit, walk away, versus you staying. So it always helps to talk to someone else who has a bit of experience dealing with this, right? So there's my link, and I am going to sign off and say bye, but I'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat place. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.